From 90.9 WBUR, this is a special live edition of Radio Boston at WBUR CitySpace. I'm Steve Brown.
I'm Sharman, Sacchetti, WCVB's political reporter.
And I'm Taylor Dolven, transportation reporter with the Boston Globe.
Today we're broadcasting live from WBUR CitySpace for a special hour-long debate between the three Democratic candidates running for Lieutenant Governor, Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll, House Rep Tami Gouveia, and State Senator Eric Lesser.
Today's debate is hosted by WBUR, the Boston Globe, and WCVB. We will get started in just a minute with the candidates' opening statements, but first let's go over the basic rules so everybody knows exactly how this will go.
Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to a question. We, the moderators, will be able to ask follow-up questions of both candidates' responses at our discretion. Those follow-up responses will be limited to 30 seconds. You'll see the timer at the front of the stage. The green light will turn yellow when you have 15 seconds remaining, and then red when you're out of time.
And listeners, there are several ways you can follow along today. Aside from listening on WBUR, we're also broadcasting a live video feed of today's event. Go to WBUR.org, BostonGlobe.com, or WCVB.com to watch. So let's begin with some opening statements from all three of the candidates. The order was decided by random draw. And we will be beginning today with, we'll be hearing from Kim Driscoll first. Kim Driscoll is the mayor of Salem, a post she's held since 2005. At the time she was elected, she was the first woman to hold the job. Prior to that, she served on the Salem City Council and worked as a private practice attorney. Kim.
Thanks so much. Thanks to our host and our moderators and everybody who's here this afternoon. So pleased to be with you. I'm Kim Driscoll. I've been fortunate to be the mayor in Salem for the last 16 years and excited about the opportunity to serve as your next lieutenant governor. As mayor, I've helped make Salem a hip, historic, vibrant destination for visitors and residents alike. Mayors like me have been on the ground through some of our most tough challenges: COVID response and recovery, addressing racial equity issues, working through the climate crisis, strengthening our public schools, and making housing more affordable. These aren't just talking points for me, they're issues I work on every single day. When you're a mayor, there's no hiding. You've got to get stuff done every single day. I want to bring that get stuff done perspective to the State House to partner with our next governor. It's the type of executive experience, sense of urgency and accountability that we need. I'm ready to get to work, not just work for my hometown, but work for yours, partnering with our next governor to impact the quality of life in the places people live every single day. Thrilled about this opportunity. Look forward to the conversation today.
So now next up is Eric Lesser. State Senator Eric Lesser represents the 1st Hampden and Hampshire District. He was first elected in 2015. Prior to Beacon Hill, Senator Lesser worked in the Obama White House in several roles, including Director of Strategic Planning for the White House Council of Economic Advisors.
Well, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for having me. You know, I love Massachusetts, like I think all of us do, but it's becoming increasingly hard to live here. The cost of childcare, housing, rent, we see what's happening with the T, with transportation. And what I want to do in my time in the State Senate and my experience working with President Obama has taught me that it takes big solutions to solve big problems. That's why I've championed transportation access my entire time in the State Senate, and why I've worked so hard to connect our state by east-west rail and to work to invest in and fix the T. I also have a history of working closely with Attorney General Maura Healey, and I think I'll be the right person to be her lieutenant when she's governor. Looking forward to today's conversation and to the debate that we're going to have over the next hour.
And finally, let's hear from Tami Gouveia. State Representative Tami Gouveia represents the 14th Middlesex District. She was first elected in 2019. Previously, she worked in social work. In 2016, Representative Gouveia founded and co-organized the Massachusetts chapter of the Women's March on Washington. Tami?
Great. Well, thank you to the moderators. Thank you to the hosts. Thank you to my colleagues for being up here. It's really an honor to share with you why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor and a little bit about who I am. So I believe that we need leaders in the corner office who are putting our health, well-being, and dignity at the center of decision-making. I've been a social worker for 25 years. I'm a doctor of public health. I've been a state representative for the last several years. And what I've seen in those roles, as well as in my own personal experience, having grown up in the city of Lowell and having lived for the last 14 years as a single mom, is how so often in bureaucratic government decision-making, we are leaving far too many people behind. I have stood with our working families, I have stood with our LGBTQ community, and I have stood up for racial justice. That's the kind of Lieutenant Governor I will be. I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much, all three of you. Let's get into our first topic, the job and making an impact with it. According to the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website, the Lieutenant Governor has two major responsibilities. One, in the absence, resignation, death, or disability of the Governor, the Lieutenant Governor performs all of their duties and has all their constitutional powers. And two, is a voting member of the Governor's Council, which advises on judicial nominations, pardons, and commutations. The LG is also delegated certain responsibilities at the governor's discretion. So this first question is to all three of you, and you each will have 60 seconds to answer. Describe how you will be able to have a bigger positive impact on your constituents as Lieutenant Governor rather than as a mayor or a state lawmaker. Be specific. We'll start with you, Kim Driscoll.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. You know, I really believe that leadership of any organization is not a solo sport. You rely on people to be part of your organization to help influence and implement your agenda. As mayor, I've certainly been an executive in my community, and I've been a statewide leader on issues around housing policy, things that impact the quality of life where people live. I hope in this role to lean into that work. We're not going to solve our most urgent challenges, whether it's affordable housing, the transportation woes we're experiencing far beyond the MBTA. Other regions of this Commonwealth also want better and more reliable service and more affordable service. We know we're not doing enough with respect to the climate crisis. As a mayor who's been on the front lines doing that work, it's a language I speak, one that I love. I think I'll be the strongest partner, not just to be a liaison to cities and towns, but frankly a strategic ally. That's where the work is getting done, whether it's educating our kids, keeping our neighborhoods safe, investing in those places that matter and the services we rely on. We need a strong state partner to ensure we're doing that work, doing it well, using these historic resources in a way that's going to help people on the ground. And I've been in the trenches. I know that work.
Okay. Tami Gouveia.
Yeah, I'm running to be a different type of Lieutenant Governor. The big issues that we are facing, whether you're talking about housing or climate change or mental health and human services, these require the ability to get to the root causes of what's driving these problems, bring people in to identify those root causes and get to solving the solution, putting forward the solutions that are really going to address and drive forward on those root causes. I have the background as a doctor of public health and as a social worker to do that. I have a vision for the job as a different type of Lieutenant Governor. When it comes to the Governor's Council, the official role of the Lieutenant Governor that's in statute, we need to identify and appoint judges to the bench who understand the role that childhood trauma, systemic racism, and intergenerational poverty play in folks becoming involved in the criminal legal system. We have a major problem with the over-incarceration of Black and brown folks in our state. I want to get to work on that as the Lieutenant Governor, drawing on my background as a doctor of public health and a social worker.
Eric Lesser.
Thanks, Steve. Well, first, not to minimize chairing the Governor's Council, because that is a very important role that often is not understood. They confirm all judicial nominations made by the governor and have an instrumental role in shaping our criminal justice reform priorities in Massachusetts. And I will take that chair on and really work to nominate and work to help get through the Governor's Council diverse candidates from across our state. When I worked for President Obama, I worked on 2 Supreme Court nominations for Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, so I think I have unique experience there. Second, one of the most important ways to be effective as Lieutenant Governor is to have, of course, a close relationship with the governor. And I've already worked closely with Attorney General Healy on big issues. Narcan bulk purchasing we did together, the Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights, a new protection for 800,000 people in Massachusetts struggling with student loans. I wrote that legislation, we got it signed, and Attorney General Healy has been implementing it.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the Governor's Council. This is going to be a really quick question. One of the key jobs, as we've mentioned, of LG is to chair the weekly Governor's Council meeting. Quick question, I'm going to go the opposite way, so we'll start with you, Eric. Who is your Governor's Counselor, and how long have they been in office?
My Governor's Counselor is Mary Hurley, who I'm proud to have the support of. She's retiring this year, and she was the first female mayor of Springfield, the only female mayor of Springfield, and someone I'm proud to have the support of.
Good. Tami.
Marilyn Devaney, and I believe she's been in office for 26 years.
Okay.
Eileen Duff in several terms.
Okay, you all passed. Good. I thought that was the trick question. Let me ask a question now to Eric, 60 seconds, and then you two will have 30 seconds to respond. Every candidate for lieutenant governor brings his or her own unique set of experiences, values, priorities, skills, and style to the office. For the next governor to maximize your contribution as lieutenant governor, what would you want the role to be and why?
Well, first, I plan to turn to Governor Healy and ask, what do you need help implementing and what do you need me working on? I expect it's going to be housing, transportation, climate. Those are the urgent issues in front of us. And I think I have unique attributes and experience to help deliver on those priorities, Steve. Just a few examples. I'm the only candidate in this race with high-level federal experience. We see the role the federal government is now playing with the MBTA safety issues. We have $9 billion in federal infrastructure money coming from the Biden infrastructure plan alone. The chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Richie Neal, has said, I'm the person to work with the next governor to help secure those federal funds. I'm also the only candidate from outside 495, and it's important to have a perspective of our entire state, including bringing the perspective of some of our underserved regions. So those are the key areas I plan to work on, and I think those are the experiences and skill sets that I plan to apply to them.
Kim, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think we all bring different experiences to this role. As someone who's been a mayor on the ground, I've enjoyed the opportunity to work directly on solving problems. As mayor, the buck stops with you. You've got to pass budgets. You've got to deliver for people every single day. I feel fortunate to have a broad cross-section of support throughout the Commonwealth. Every single corner of this Commonwealth, local officials, state officials, who are standing up and see me as the best executive and innovative leader to work with our next governor to implementing solutions. In January, we own the housing crisis. We own the transportation wars. We own the need to have more childcare. That's the work I've been doing. I think I'll be a strong partner to Governor Healy.
Tami,
I've been in this race for the last 14 months, and so really have crisscrossed the state and have a deep understanding of the issues and the suffering that so many hardworking families are facing every day. So that's why I'm talking about the child care crisis and the mental health crisis. If we don't invest in human services and mental health care and child care, we will not be able to get our economy on track and keep it on track. That is the way that I will complement the role that Governor Healy will play, being a different type of lieutenant governor. I think voters should be demanding more from the role of lieutenant governor as its own constitutional office.
I just want to follow up on that issue. There is inevitably going to be a time where perhaps you do not necessarily agree with the governor's policy positions, and yet you may be forced to defend some of that. How would you navigate that? Let's start with you, Kim.
Yeah, sure. As an executive, as mayor, you want a strong team of people around you, not a bunch of yes men or yes women, and you work through those challenges. You want to have a diversity of opinions coming in, and ultimately, as the executive, you make the decision. That's going to be up to the governor to make decisions, but I think knowing Maura Healey the way I have, the work that I've done with her, I think she wants to hear from people. She wants that opportunity to know the pros, the cons, the lefts, the rights. How are we going to attack a problem and solve it? There's oftentimes not a perfect solution or one way of tackling a need within state government. And I think the experience that I have could be really helpful to work through those issues.
Tami?
Yeah, one of the things that I would really advocate for is bringing people with lived experience directly into the portfolio of work that I want to tackle and that I want to take on in addressing climate and housing and mental health and childcare. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. We still have monkeypox that's on the horizon with a bunch of students coming back to our college campuses. There's a lot more for us to do. I believe that there's a real important role for creative tension. That's what a team really does, is focuses on, well, here are the different ideas that we have, here are the different perspectives, let's come to a resolution around how we're going to address that.
And Eric?
No, thank you, Sharman. This is actually a very important role for a lieutenant governor, and I have experience working at a high level and at a sensitive level for a chief executive. And in the Senate, I work with committee chairs, I work with leadership, items we agree with, items we don't agree with. The key is to make sure that the chief executive is well served by getting all the perspectives that they need to make a decision, and to be able to have a relationship where you can communicate and share different points of view, first in private, but of course, if it's a matter of high principle, there might sometimes have to be a disagreement.
Okay, very good. Now, this question to Kim, 60 seconds. As Lieutenant Governor, you will be in a supporting role of the governor and often expected to be, at least publicly, completely on board with the governor's policies and initiatives. But you may also have your own opinions and positions that might differ from the governor. Can you describe a time where you had a different viewpoint than a boss or a superior and how you handled that?
Yeah, sure. I had the good fortune to work in the city of Chelsea as they were coming out of receivership as their legal counsel and their deputy city manager, certainly now as mayor, in two different roles, one more of a supporting role, one as a chief executive. And there are times when you are going to land in a different place, and you've got to go out and support the work of the organization. When you are a subordinate, your job is to make sure folks have the right information from a diversity of opinions, and then you lock arms and work together. We may have disputes behind closed doors, and I can tell you we duked it out as part of the senior staff in the city of Chelsea, working through receivership, post-receivership, a whole new form of government. But when we got behind something, we locked arms and wanted to make sure it was successful. And that's the role when you're in an organization trying to implement an agenda and move forward.
Okay. Eric?
So when I worked for President Obama, there were any number of decisions that I might have agreed with or disagreed with, but the key was making sure that the chief executive was well served and making decisions based on the full information and full set of perspectives available for them. In the Senate, sometimes you win votes, sometimes you lose votes. The best advice I ever got was focus on the next vote. Keep working to build consensus, keep working to get to agreement on places, and you'll ultimately end up in the right place. But the key for a lieutenant governor, working with a governor, is to make sure the governor is well served by a full set of perspectives.
Okay, thank you.
I think what's critical in the next administration is that we reestablish trust of the population, reestablish trust of everyday average residents in the Commonwealth. And the way to do that is to be very clear outwardly about what the goals, what the vision is, be in constant communication about what those goals are, what that shared vision is, so that every person in our state understands what we're really working towards as a Commonwealth, really working together as a Commonwealth in every single part of the state. That's the kind of thing that I've done throughout my career, is building on shared agreement, being clear about that vision, and executing on it.
Okay, thank you. We have, this is to all of you. It's just going to be a 30-second answer, bringing people together. As a nation, our citizens have become deeply divided, distrusting the other, and increasingly violent towards others. A poll from CBS News last February showed that most Democrats tend to view Republicans as political opponents, while most Republicans viewing Democrats as enemies. What responsibility, if any, would you take as Lieutenant Governor for addressing this issue? Specifically, what would you do? Tami Gouveia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's something that I've done throughout my career as a social worker and even as a candidate. When folks have tried to go on the attack and go on the offensive against our Republicans, I stand up and I say that's not the way that we treat each other. That's not the way we are going to be able to work together to address the big issues that we are facing. We need to make sure that we are, having more fair taxation, passing the Fair Share Amendment so that we have consistent sources of revenue to invest in our transportation system, to invest in equitable access to education. We have to realize that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep,
Eric?
I didn't see the.
This is frankly
green.
at the heart of so many issues in our politics right now, and I think I'm uniquely suited, Steve. The region I represent in the greater Springfield area, my state Senate district, includes some of the densest urban communities in Massachusetts. It also includes a town without a stoplight. I represent and I speak and I work with very diverse people, including diverse politically in terms of political opinions, every single day. The key is getting out, working with people, listening, and taking people's concerns seriously.
Okay, Kim Driscoll.
Thanks. As a mayor working in local government, it's nonpartisan, right? There's no Democrat or Republican pothole. You've got to solve problems for people every day. Folks are hurting right now. We're a high-cost state. It's not helping that inflation's going up, interest rates are up. They're expecting solutions from elected officials, not food fights. From my perspective, that's the work I've been doing, operating openly and transparently, respecting viewpoints, and then solving problems. One of the best parts about local government is no hiding in that direct accountability.
Thank you. You are listening to a special edition of Radio Boston live from WBUR CitySpace. This is a debate between the three Democratic candidates for Lieutenant Governor. With us today, Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll, State Senator Eric Lesser, and House Representative Tami Gouveia. We are broadcasting live on 90.9 WBUR and streaming live video on WBUR.org, BostonGlobe.com, and WCVB.com.
We want to move on now to a quick lightning round so our audience can get to know all of you. Friendly reminder to keep your answers brief. The first question will be the last book that you read and really enjoyed. Kim?
So I don't get to read for pleasure, but I'm rereading The Color of Law, Richard Rothstein. I would not recommend it for pleasure, but it is a really important read.
Great. Tammy?
I'm a proud Gen Xer, and there is a constituent of mine who wrote a book. It's called the Resolution of Misdeeds. The reason why I have to look at what it's written down, because I'm in the middle of reading it. I haven't finished it yet, but it has a lot of wonderful references to 80s music.
Great. Eric?
So with 3 little kids and a campaign, not a whole lot of time to read, but I am rereading The Growth Mindset, which is a great book. I really highly recommend, and just finished a really fantastic biography of David Ben-Gurion, also highly recommend.
And your favorite song at the moment, a song you can't get out of your head? Tammy, we'll start with you.
My walk-on song at the convention, Walking on Sunshine.
Kim?
I've been listening to a lot of Lizzo these days, so that's what I'm going through my head. Just had her on in the green room.
Eric?
So my sister got married over the weekend, so we were going through the playlist, and I've got to say, anything Lionel Richie is in my head right now.
By the way, how much is the per gallon gas tax in Massachusetts, Eric?
It's 24 cents.
Tammy?
24 cents.
Kim?
24, add in the feds, it's closer to 40, I think. Oh.
You all passed. Do you ride the T? And if so, what's your most common route? Eric, let's start with you.
So I live 90 miles west of here, more than 50 miles west of the closest commuter rail stop. So day to day, I don't use the T, and that's something I want to change. I've been working to expand rail service to Springfield and Pittsfield. I did live in Boston for 7 years, and I was a regular red line rider.
Okay. Tammy?
Living in the Metro West suburb, I need a car. I don't have public transportation where I live.
Kim?
Yeah, since my commute to work is in one city, I don't take the T to work every day, but definitely take the commuter rail from Salem into Boston. Often take the Blue Line, hopping on a Wonderland.
On that note, let's switch gears here and talk about transportation, something that's on the minds of a lot of people right now. Right now, this is for all of you, 30 seconds. How would you grade the T's performance and why? Tammy, let's start with you.
A D. It's crashing and burning. We haven't had enough of the kind of oversight that voters and residents in our state really deserve and should be demanding, and we haven't made the investments that we've really needed to keep up with the state of repair. It's unsafe, it's unreliable, and it's putting people's lives at risk and causing major inconveniences with these impending closures.
Kim?
Yeah, the T is definitely not passing right now. We need a public transportation system that's safe, affordable, reliable, convenient, and that is certainly not what's happening at the T, or frankly, any of our public transit systems. Not only do we need investment, but we need the type of experienced leadership that is investing in both the operations and the capital to make an organization like that work. That's what's going to be necessary as we move forward.
And to follow up, do you support the governor shutting down the Orange Line for 30 days, Tammy?
Yeah, I mean, we have to for safety reasons, but I'm grateful that Mayor Wu has stepped up and other folks are stepping up to offer shuttle services and other opportunities for people to get around. But, I find it discouraging and disheartening that also the message is, well, just avoid the city of Boston. This is our economy. Folks rely on, people showing up to their local coffee shop or, shopping in the downtown businesses. So it's concerning from a bigger perspective.
Thank you, Eric.
So I didn't have a chance to answer the previous question. Just to be clear, I think the MBTA has an F right now. It's literally setting on fire. And I think to connect the question, Sharman, we have to get the service back to some level of acceptability. The 30-day shutdown, I hope, works. We need to go farther than that. And in a Healy-Lesser administration, I'm going to prioritize safety, working with Governor Healy. We're going to work to change the culture by putting in place a Bill of Rights for passengers and putting in place a refund program. Believe it or not, there was no refund.
Kim. We've got to keep going. Kim?
I'm sorry, the question again? I apologize.
You support the governor's...
Yeah, I think the challenge we have is crisis planning. This is not how to run a railroad, literally. You want to be able to make those capital investments that are planned so people are aware of it. When you have to have those shutdowns, you have the opportunity to make sure people have a look ahead and can make the sorts of planning they need to get to where they need to go. This is a vital transportation system, work, school, medical appointments that we're shutting down with very little notice. That's to be avoided.
And this is to all of you. Given your grade, the grade you gave to the T, do you continue to have faith in General Manager Steve Poftak? Kim, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at any organization from the outside looking in, we're looking at headlines, we're aware what some of those assessments have, so it's definitely questionable. But as we move forward, you really have to do that assessment and make sure the tools are in place. That's the right management, the right resources, the right folks on the ground. I do want to pause for 1 minute and really thank the hardworking people who are going to work every single day, driving the buses, dispatching the transportation, being those train conductors. They're not responsible for the current situation, but they are living through it, and it can be really demoralizing just seeing us kick the heck out of the T every day, even though, unfortunately, it's deserved at the current time.
Thank you. Tami?
Yeah, I think we have to, again, just what I've been saying throughout this conversation is get to the root cause of what's going on. I can't say whether or not the Secretary is responsible for all of these decisions, but we do know that there are issues with oversight, there's issues with funding, and that is held by a lot of folks, including in the legislature, not just held with the Secretary.
So, just a couple of things. First, I think there are big questions about the leadership at the T. I want to echo what Mayor Driscoll said. The hardworking people that are driving the trains, maintaining the tracks, deserve our praise and our thanks. But Taylor, it goes higher than General Manager Poftek. Your own reporting has indicated, for example, that there was potentially political interference in the communication that was being done to the public about derailments. We had the General Manager and the Secretary of Transportation in front of us at a hearing. We asked them point blank, is the T safe? They told us yes. 2 days later, the fire on the Orange Line.
I do want to point something out. Tammy said we don't have public transportation. You are from Acton, and it is serviced by the Fitchburg branch of the MBTA.
Yeah, it's not the T, though. I have a commuter rail. The question was around the T's. Yes. Thank you for the clarification, though.
So this is for Tami. 60 seconds. We're approaching an unprecedented shutdown of the Orange Line. The federal government has highlighted extremely concerning safety lapses at the T. But these issues are some that state government has long known about. The old way of doing things clearly isn't working. What are some new ideas you have to get the beleaguered transit system back on track?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the transportation system that's been underinvested in and underfunded. We see this happening with the mental health care system and the child care system. We know that the T and the transportation sector has had also the workforce shortages that every single sector and every single industry has been facing. So my ideas that I've already really put forth is to get to the root causes of some of these other big issues, the workforce issues that are making it really challenging to keep the T on track, to keep transportation on track. We need to have some sort of transportation czar or someone who's really looking at the system as a whole. We have a bunch of mini transportation systems that don't always have the same funding sources, don't have the same kind of oversight. Oftentimes, we don't have ways to address the first mile and the last mile. I did pass legislation just before COVID hit that would allow us to make some investments through bonding to make sure that we are addressing the first mile, last mile issues so that we have a fully connected state with East-West Rail, with North-South Rail, with Cape Flyer, et cetera.
Thank you. Kim, response from you, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the question and the importance that public transportation has in the Commonwealth. And frankly, we've had an inspiration gap around public transportation. In my community, we didn't wait for Boston. We've put in place other ways to get in and around our community, from a public on-demand rideshare service, a car share service, obviously bike share, investing in that sort of infrastructure. Not everyone is trying to get in and out of Boston. Many communities lack the type of transportation in and around their regions. As we move forward, we need to invest in transportation that recognizes the connections it has to housing, to climate, to workforce. This is the type of work that we can put in place as we move forward as a state.
I have a quick follow, Tammy, for your comment about a transportation czar. We do have a transportation secretary. We do have a general manager of the T that serves at the pleasure of the governor. Is part of the problem all of this high turnover at the top?
I think it's high turnover. I also just think it's a lack of communication, a lack of a shared vision of what the transportation system as a whole really ought to look like. Even in my own area, we don't have always the opportunity to address getting people from their houses to, or from a parking garage to the commuter line. So addressing those issues is going to take a big picture view of what the issues really are, and is a lack of clarity around whose responsibility that really is.
Sharman, can I put a postscript on that? Because I think this is really important. What's happening on the ground in communities has got to impact the transportation vision that we have. So many places, there is innovation happening, but not in Massachusetts. How do we think about pilot programs, connecting communities? Most people are driving in and around their own cities and towns.
All right, and Eric?
I appreciate the question, and I actually agree with almost everything that's been said, although it didn't answer the key question, which is about safety at the T, which is the most urgent issue in front of us. Here's a couple very specific things that I would work on as Lieutenant Governor around safety. First, we need to put back in place a refund program. It was taken away in 2011. I think that's important to help shift the culture. There needs to be much more of a rider-centric culture at the T, including a rider bill of rights. I worked with Attorney General Healy on a student loan bill of rights. We would work on a rider bill of rights. Right. And finally, there needs to be more transparency.
We want to keep moving this on.
Okay. Well, we need more transparency at the T. The governor, we put this in the transportation bill, and the governor effectively
We have a lot to get to. We have a lot to get to. In a press conference on Monday, Governor Charlie Baker and T General Manager Steve Poftak urged people impacted by the Orange Line shutdown not to drive during it, as you mentioned, Tami. Instead, opting for other forms of transportation. We know people rely on their cars in Salem, in Longmeadow, in Acton, and everywhere in between. Yet transportation is a sector that contributes most to climate change in Massachusetts. As a top elected official, how would you help individuals change their transportation habits to low-emission modes like trains, buses, bikes, walking? Be specific, Eric.
Well, I have a very specific suggestion that I've worked on for 8 years, which is high-speed rail service connecting our state from Pittsfield through Springfield through Worcester to Boston. This project would be the single biggest greenhouse gas reduction project in our state's history, taking thousands of cars off the road. It would help create thousands of units of new housing, good transit-oriented development that's walkable and accessible for families. And it would create thousands of good, high-paying jobs, especially in areas of our state that have frankly been left out of the life sciences and the high-tech boom we've seen in certain areas. The other reason why it's important, Taylor, is it would help the T, because it would bring in new riders, would bring in new investment, and frankly, it would help get political buy-in across the state to support public transportation because all of our regions would benefit.
Kim?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be the mayor that didn't wait for others to solve problems. We have a city-owned ferry we bought my second year in office. Water transportation is definitely something we need to put on the list to explore. There's no potholes in the water, and another way to get people to and fro where they're going. We've also developed our own on-demand public rideshare service. As I mentioned, Salem Skipper, given over 65,000 rides to date for people in our community and in surrounding communities. A car share service where we purchased vehicles and put them around neighborhoods. Our goal is to be a car-light community, and we're working towards it. But I just want to pick up on one more thing. East-West Rail, wonderful idea, fully supportive of it. It is not the only thing that folks in Western Mass are relying on. Most people need to get in and around their own communities, and that's the type of transportation we need with communities in mind.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Or?
Can we hear Tami's response?
So as a single mom for 14 years, one of the reasons why I say I haven't taken transportation is because it is not affordable. In a place like the suburbs, you have to have both a car insurance, and then the commuter rail pass is about the same as paying for a car payment or for car insurance. I have not always taken the commuter rail when I wanted to because it's also not reliable, and it doesn't offer transportation stops in the afternoon when I might need to get home quickly to a child. So this is one of the reasons why I do support making the T fare-free, making RTAs fare-free, and also looking at opportunities to pilot the commuter rail also being fare-free.
So on the topic of fare-free transit, from Boston Mayor Michelle Wu to Senator Ed Markey, there's been a big push for fare-free transit. The Merrimack Valley RTA found they were only going to get back 8 cents on the dollar for fares if they invested in upgrading their fare collection system. So they scrapped it all together and made all buses free, and they've seen ridership soar. Do you support fare-free bus transit on the MBTA and at regional transit authorities in Massachusetts? This is 30 seconds for each of you, yes or no. Kim?
Yeah, I definitely want to have a pathway to fare-free buses. What we're seeing in Boston is when the buses were free, they work better operationally, they're more on time, and many of the people riding the buses have already invested in a T-Pass because they're also riding the subway system. Fully support our local RTAs who work a little bit differently than the MBTA in terms of offering fare-free ride. I had that conversation with Mayor Rivera at the time. The impact that it had offering fare-free buses and the investment were well worth it. It may look different in different places, so we need to be mindful of that. And just lastly, we have to have a graduated fare system, not just on buses, on all transportation.
Thank you. Eric?
Very simple. Yes, I've championed and supported that in the legislature. I've worked on the a reduced fare or fare-free pilot with the PVTA, which is our regional transit authority in the greater Springfield area. And absolutely, we need fare-free transit while the shutdowns of both the Orange Line and the Green Line are underway. That, to me, feels like common sense.
Tami?
Yes, I do, of course, and without means testing, because the bureaucracy that's needed to administer for means testing actually takes away from the dollars that can be invested right back into the system. And we know that when we have fare-free systems set up, that it makes the transit more reliable. People can get off and on the trains much faster and the buses much faster, and that contributes to getting people out of their cars onto public transit, which helps us with our state's climate goals.
I think we have time for just one last transportation question. This is for all of you, for just 30 seconds. Much of the state's budget for roads and highways is funded by the Massachusetts gas tax. How would you fund transportation as more cars become electric? Eric, let's start with you.
It's a very important item, because as we transition to electric vehicles, of course, less gas will be consumed, which means less income from the gas tax. So first, we do have the Fair Share Amendment coming, which I support and will be a very important component of our transportation funding moving forward. And we need to update our local aid formulas in terms of road and bridge funding in local communities as well.
Tami?
One of the things that I think is critical in this role as Lieutenant Governor is to be proactive and to look forward to what are the challenges we're going to face. As we have more electric vehicles on the roads, this is something that we will face. We will see a reduction in the gas tax income and revenue coming in. It is why I support Fair Share Amendment, but we also have opportunities to look at other ways of taxing vehicles on the road, maybe per seat or per weight, or some other formula that we need to start to be exploring.
And Kim?
Yeah, the fair share will be a perfect way to have sustainable revenues coming in. We know for every $1 we invest in public transportation, it returns $4 in terms of support for the economy going forward. We have historic new resources. Right now, we're talking about a $5 billion surplus in state government. We just adopted sports betting. That's going to bring in another anywhere close to $35 million. We have resources. It's about prioritizing them for transportation. It is the lifeblood for housing, for the economy, and it's something that we have had an inspiration gap on. Moving forward, this needs to be a key priority as it's tied in to so many other key initiatives.
All right, thank you. You are listening to a special edition of Radio Boston, live from WBUR CitySpace. This is a debate between the three Democratic candidates for Lieutenant Governor. With us today, Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll, State Senator Eric Lesser, and State Representative Tami Gouveia. We are broadcasting live on 90.9 WBUR and streaming live video on WBUR.org, BostonGlobe.com, and WCVB.com. Switching now to something a little bit different. In May, Beacon Hill lawmakers overrode a veto from Governor Charlie Baker on a bill that would grant undocumented residents the ability to get driver's licenses. Now, Massachusetts is one of 16 states with similar laws. After that override, members of the GOP began working to get the law on the ballot as a question for voters in November so voters could repeal it. Now, are you in favor of keeping this in place? And what would be your plan if elected if this made it to the ballot and it were repealed? Let's start with you, Kim Driscoll.
Yeah, I'm a strong supporter of the law. I've been an advocate for it since day one, several years ago when it was first proposed. We know a number of community members in Salem are immigrants, are undocumented, and we want to make sure they can get to school, to work, to driver's appointments, to the grocery store. If you're not for this law because of moral issues, I'd hope you support it for basic public safety. Having licensed drivers, folks who are registered and insured, is a plus for our community. If this were to be overturned, I would be a strong advocate to stand up and make sure that we're moving forward in a way that allows undocumented residents a license and hopefully be in a position to beat back any sort of question on the ballot by showcasing immigrants are part of our neighbors and friends. They're part of all of our communities. This is a perfect common sense tool in my perspective.
Eric?
I was an original co-sponsor of that legislation. To be clear, as the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor, I would work to defeat that ballot initiative. And if, unfortunately, or hopefully it won't, but if it is successful, I would work to try to change it, working with the legislature again, hopefully go back to the law that we passed, and for a few reasons. Just to echo what Mayor Driscoll said, this is very important in terms of equity. People need to be able to get to doctor's appointments, to work. People need to be able to move around. The other piece that's important to reinforce is in states where this has been passed, and you mentioned about 16 states or so have done it, it's actually reduced traffic accidents, it's reduced hit and runs because it contributes to people being safe on the roads, taking the driver's tests, getting the licenses, and being part of the education that goes into getting a license. So strong supporter, and I'll be working to defeat that ballot initiative.
Thank you, Tami.
Yeah, I echo what my colleagues up here have said. I have been a supporter of the Family Mobility Act for all the reasons laid out. It's better for public safety. It's a humane way to treat our hardworking immigrant residents and neighbors, including undocumented, because they contribute to the strength of our economy every single day, working in our nursing homes, working as cleaners in our office buildings, working as landscapers, and just making the fundamental contributions that we really rely on in this state. It is one of the reasons I believe why the safety issues is why the chiefs have come out in support of this legislation. It was, this legislation took a couple years to pass. It had a lot of negotiating around making sure that protections were in place. And one of the things that folks on the GOP side are fighting back against, even though that this legislation does poll well, is that there are concerns around folks going and voting illegally. That is not going to happen. The Secretary of the Commonwealth has come out and said protections can be put in place at the RNV.
I do want to push back because yesterday we did have the two Republican candidates for this position on, and they did describe some concerns. One of them was that it would reward bad behavior. The other is concerns about the differences in how the licenses for undocumented immigrants would appear, and that they're very similar, and whether or not you have confidence in the registry to be able to tell the difference and verify who is who coming in. And so I wonder, do you have confidence in the registry, Kim?
Yeah, those sound very much like Republican talking points to me. We now have immigrants who have green cards who are able to obtain a driver's license. We're able to differentiate there. It makes no sense to go backwards on this. For the two candidates who have supported Donald Trump, I wouldn't be surprised that they're not supporting issues that are going to help not only protect but advance hardworking immigrants in our communities. And just the last component here, from a moral perspective, these are friends and neighbors that we rely on. It's hard to imagine you can give somebody a fishing license, but you can't get them a driving license. I think our priorities are out of whack there.
Yeah, no, those do sound like Donald Trump talking points to me. And just to be clear, Massachusetts is a commonwealth of immigrants. We must continue to welcome immigrants and make people feel safe and welcome here. And absolutely, I have confidence in the registry to process it. 16 states already do it.
And Tami?
Yeah, I really take issue with the premise of those comments that it rewards bad behavior. That just strikes me as very xenophobic and racist to assume that people are here for any other reason than they are fleeing countries that they have had major economic struggles, major civil wars. And part of that is also just the international impacts of the geopolitical landscape. So I just really have a hard time with that kind of premise and that kind of Trumpian talking point.
And we do have some more information on that. A majority of registered voters, 58%, say they support preserving the new licenses law, while 34% would vote to repeal it, according to a new Suffolk University Boston Globe poll. All right, before we get to our next topic, we do want to have another quick lightning round so everyone can get to know you a little bit better, and we want to keep these answers very brief. First question, have you gambled in Massachusetts? And if so, what did you do, Eric?
I have not, although sports betting has been legalized, so we'll see, maybe football season. I personally am not a gambler, but I have supported the sports betting legislation. I think it's going to be a good law for Massachusetts and align us with our neighbors.
And Kim?
Yeah, I lost $20 at Encore Casino celebrating a friend's milestone birthday there.
You did?
Yep, whole 20.
What game did you play?
We were in the slots, the one-armed bandits. They totally are, by the way.
Tammy?
Just the lottery.
Yeah, just the lottery.
Just the lottery and scratch tickets.
Well, sports betting is legal now, so what is the first team you'd place a bet on? Let's start with you again, Eric.
It's got to be the Patriots, right?
Tammy?
Yeah, I would say the Patriots as well.
I'm a Celtics fan, so I got to go there.
All right. And should the state consider bringing back happy hour in some form? Tammy?
I say no. There are a lot of restaurants that are pushing back against a happy hour coming back to our state because of the impacts that it would have on their business and the competition to the bottom of, offering free and reduced drinks. So I say no.
Eric?
We included a provision on happy hour in recent Senate legislation. I do support it. I will note that there are important considerations around drunk driving and addiction that have to be handled, but many other states have it, and I think there's a way to do it responsibly. So yes, I do support bringing
Kim?
it back.
Yeah, I think it should be left up to localities, to be quite honest. This is an issue where local autonomy can really make a big difference. The type of community you have, the folks that might be partaking in something like this, and the impacts it might have on the ground.
All right. And what grade would you give Governor Charlie Baker's performance? An A, a B, a C, a D, or an F after 7.5 years and no incompletes? Kim?
No incompletes. You're making it hard on us. The governor's been a great partner for cities and towns. We've got a strong working relationship. I would give him a B.
All right. Tammy?
I give him a C for the privatized response to the pandemic that forced so many people to engage in Hunger Games type fight for vaccines and not having the kind of access to rapid tests that we really needed.
Eric?
I'll go right in between that. I'm going to say B-. I think on transit, it's been an F. He vetoed the initial legislation on East-West Rail, and I think we've seen with the MBTA safety issues now over a number of years, there's been a real lack of leadership there.
All right, there's so much more we can talk about, but we're going to move on to our last topic, which is the economy. This is to Senator Lesser. Everyone else will have 30 seconds. He will have 60 seconds to answer this question. The state legislature recessed for August with a major bill still in committee. Of course, we've all been talking about it, the $4.5 billion economic development bill. Senate President Kara Spilka wants the legislature to get back to work and pass something. House Speaker Ron Mariano says, no, people have vacations, they should take time off. So my question to you is, should Beacon Hill lawmakers return to work right now, and do you have an obligation to?
This is a no-brainer, Sharman. Absolutely, we have to reconvene. We have no choice but to reconvene. People are relying on that aid. That package also includes vital aid to our hospitals, support for the home health care workforce, support for child care workers, as well as, of course, the tax package. There's precedent for us reconvening past the July 31 deadline. We did it in 2020 during COVID. In fact, the rule is rather arbitrary. It's only in recent years that it's even been in place. So we do need to come back, and I do support the Senate President's position on that.
And Tammy?
Yeah, I believe we need to come back. I think we need to come back after we see the auditor's report on the potential trigger of that 1986 law. There's a lot of tax relief that our hardworking folks are really relying on us to get done. In that economic development package, there was relief for renters, relief for seniors, and also for those with dependent care. So we have to get back into session after that auditor's report comes out.
All right. And Kim?
Yeah, super disappointing to find that we don't have funding for affordable housing, for small businesses, for some of the tax revenue that we know people in communities are relying on. As a mayor, it's really insulting, quite frankly. People are hurting right now, and these are programs that would help, not only the tax relief, but the innovative dollars coming back to us. And I think it's embarrassing that we didn't get it done at a time when we know folks on the ground need that assistance desperately.
All right, times are tough on that point. Times are tough out there for people. For example, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of this past May, food prices in the Boston area have risen 9%, almost 9% from last year. What are your plans to help residents right now who are struggling? Kim?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a mayor, I know the buck stops with me, and some of the work that we have underway using our federal resources is to address affordable housing, working to lower the cost of housing, new housing development in our community, and support the production of new housing. We've expanded childcare, the ability to help families, working families who can't find high-quality childcare, let alone fund what is available, and to do that within our city has been life-changing for family members who are participating in that. Working hard to think about ways that we can create opportunities for workforce investment to support small businesses as they need workers now.
Tammy, you have 30 seconds to respond. What are your plans?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we got to get that economic development package done because it does have that kind of tax relief that is pretty immediate in there with some of the tax rebates, and making sure that we are capturing all working families, those who even earn below $38,000 $100,000 because they were left out of that original package. But we also have to acknowledge that, housing has gone up 20% in the Boston area. Wages have not kept pace with that. We can get other packages passed, like the wage theft bill, which would put $1 billion back into the pockets of hardworking people who did not get the pay that they actually earned.
Thank you, Eric.
Well, you asked about short, immediate things that can get relief now. You specifically brought up food prices. One very specific program that I've championed over the years is MeFAP, which is the Massachusetts Emergency Food Access Program, which helps distribute from local Massachusetts farms produce and fresh food to food banks across the state and getting them out. We need to surge support for that program as grocery prices go up, and we need to surge support to rental assistance because we've seen the rents going up double digits, creating real pressure.
All right,
for
thank
people.
you. This is a question for all of you. You'll each have 30 seconds to answer it. According to Mass.gov, Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito makes $165,000 every year. Census data from 2020 shows the median household income in Massachusetts is roughly $84,000. That's nearly $100,000 less than your potential salary if elected. Do you think this salary puts you in touch with the average working family? We're going to go down the line. We'll start with you, Eric.
I think rather than focusing on the salary, what's important is focusing on how you approach the job and how you engage with people and with constituents. And I plan to be out and about across Massachusetts, having an open door and being accessible to people. And I think that work and that access and that traveling around the state is going to help me stay in touch with communities.
All right, Tami?
Yeah, I have lived through a lot of the financial challenges that hardworking families are facing every single day. I have had that negative bank balance on more weeks than I could care to admit. I've had to borrow money to put gas in my car, to put milk in my kids' bellies. So I understand those financial challenges, and that means that I am going to be the person in the corner office who is really fighting for our working families, fighting for people who have experienced the kind of shame and isolation and the challenges that come with financial insecurity.
All right, Kim?
Yeah, as the mayor of a gateway city, I know firsthand the challenges that people are facing right now. I'm also the wife of a union bricklayer. I know what it means when there's work and when there's not. And as a mom, at one point, of 3 kids under the age of 5, I know how hard it is, not only the hustle and the juggling, but the affordability. That is what is key right now for those of us who are in a position to be able to help, that we're thinking about how to close that gap for many of our families and seniors.
We have time for one more question in this block, and to all of you, it's 30 seconds. In November, voters will face a ballot question to implement the Fair Share Amendment. If approved, it would amend the state constitution and put an extra 4% tax on anybody's personal income over $1 million. 2 just-released polls show around 56% favor the tax, while 36% are opposed, 8% are undecided. Are you in favor of the Fair Share Amendment, Kim?
Yes, it's a common sense way to raise revenues for education and transportation, 2 vital needs as we move forward.
Tami?
Yes, it will impact about 20,000 residents in our state. We have millions more that are relying on the investments that package will generate.
And Eric?
Yes, I've supported it every session I've been in the Senate. And I think the conversation we've just had indicates that we have an economy that is highly distorted and is concentrating wealth in a much smaller group of people year after year. We need policies that help everybody.
And just a brief follow-up on that question. What about folks, seniors say, who sell their house and they find themselves as a one-time millionaire? They would also face this. Is that fair, do you think, Eric?
Well, we have supported in the legislature expanding the estate tax, moving the threshold up, and doing away with the unfair snapback provision that Massachusetts has. We're one of the only states with that.
But that was in economic development. It hasn't
been
done.
But we will reconvene to get that done. We have to get it done. And I think appropriate measures like that, taking into account seniors, people that might have one-time income, is a good way to help address some of the unforeseen consequences here. But the core of the issue, Sharman, is the growing concentration of wealth in a small group of people.
Let's go to you.
Yes, absolutely support moving forward with a way that can protect folks. The Fair Share Amendment, we do have tax incentives put in place to reduce the impact. But I just need to call out one thing. The disparity between gonna, want to, are planning on it is different. When you're a mayor, you can't rely on that. This is a legislature who left a lot of things on the cutting room floor. While they approved sports betting, they didn't get things done that matter to people that you're talking about, who sold their house and now find themselves in a position where they may end up paying a tax that really is not the goal of this particular Fair Share Amendment.
Thank you, Tami.
Me first?
You first, yeah.
Okay. Is it fair to seniors? The Fair Share Amendment is not going to impact the vast, vast majority of folks who sell their home in the state of Massachusetts. Yes, housing prices have gone up. There are other protections that we can put in place to support our seniors who might find themselves in that position. But this really is about making sure that every person in our state, particularly those who are at the top, are paying their fair share because they benefit from the investments that will come from that revenue in education and in transportation.
All right.
You're going to do the lightning round.
Oh, yes, and we are going to be moving.
One more lightning round.
Sorry about that.
You love those, don't you?
We've talked about the job and specific policies, but before we let you go, we're going to do a couple lightning round questions. The top place to get ice cream in Massachusetts, Kim?
Wow, there's so many. Dairy Witch in Salem is my go-to.
Eric?
There's obviously a lot. Favorite for me and my kids are JB's Ice Cream in East Long Meadow.
And Tammy?
Erickson's.
All right. And what do you like to do when you're not working, Tammy?
Spend time with family.
Eric?
Yeah, it's definitely spending time with my kids, 9, 6, and 16 months. They're fun ages, and I love to fish and be outdoors.
All right, and Kim?
I've got teens and young adults. They're not as interested in spending time with me, although I am with them. But I have adopted pickleball as my new sport, and just love it.
All right. So speaking of, if you have a day off and you get to spend it entirely in Massachusetts, I want you to describe briefly your perfect day. Let's go back to you, Kim.
Oof. I mean, I love the Cape. There's just so many beaches there that I really enjoy. So any place on P-Town or Eastham and hanging out and just enjoying a beautiful day.
Tammy?
Yeah, for me, it's also going to the beach, any of the beautiful beaches we have in Gloucester or down on the Cape.
All right, and Eric?
I'm going to put a plug in for our Great Lakes in Western Mass. Lake Wyola is one of the favorites we go to with my kids and my wife.
And I know you're all out busy on the campaign trail. So what is your go-to weeknight easy dinner, Eric?
Usually just boil some pasta and throw some sauce on top and call it a day.
All right, Tammy?
Picking up sushi from Spice Pepper in Acton.
All right.
Oh my gosh, you guys are way better foodies than I am. I'm usually into a bowl of cereal at 11 o'clock.
What kind of cereal?
Well, I like cornflakes, but I'm not. The cornflakes with the strawberries, I think, are the best model.
Well, it's almost lunchtime, but first we're going to let you do some closing statements. As with our opening statements, the order was determined by random draw. Kim Driscoll, we'll start with you. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, giving us a chance to showcase both who we are and some of the skill sets and experience we'll bring to this role as Lieutenant Governor. I'm really excited about the opportunity to take the know-how, the sense of urgency, and the work that you do in local government to this State House. When you're a mayor, there's no hiding, there's direct accountability. You're tasked with making decisions for neighbors and friends and people you're going to see the next day. It makes you a better listener, it makes you more accountable, and it gives you a sense of urgency. I want to take that experience to tackle some of the biggest challenges our Commonwealth is facing, rolling up my sleeves, working in concert with our next governor, Maura Healey, to make sure we're impacting the quality of life in the places people live. As a mayor, I know what it's like on the ground. I have the relationships, a broad cross-section of support, not only from local leaders, but from labor, from Planned Parenthood. I think I can bring the degree of experience and get stuff done mentality to the State House, and look forward and humbly ask for your vote on September 6th in the Lieutenant Governor's race.
Tami Gouveia.
Yeah, thank you again for everybody listening and for the moderators and for my colleagues. As has been kind of highlighted throughout this hour, but also in other debates, and you can even take a look at some of the positions that we've taken on various issues, there are real differences in this race. I have the endorsement of the Mass Teachers Association and the American Federation of Teachers because of the ways that I have stood up for our teachers, for our students, making sure that as we got back into the classroom that folks were safe. There are real differences when it comes to the kind of progressive that I'm running and having a vision for the role that the Lieutenant Governor can play and ought to play, that we should be demanding that this constitutional office plays in getting to the root causes of the problems that we are facing every single day. And there are real differences in terms of the kinds of support that some of us have who are sitting up here on this stage. One of our opponents has a super PAC, a Mitch McConnell and developer-backed super PAC that has gotten involved in this race. You got to ask yourself, voters, why would a super PAC want to get involved in a primary for the Democratic primary for Lieutenant Governor?
Eric Lesser, you'll have the last word with your closing statement.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This was a great conversation, and voters are going to have an important choice coming up, which is the executive team that they want to put together. The person they want is the lieutenant to Governor Healy. And I think I've got a unique set of experiences. I'm the only person with high-level federal experience. I'm the only person from west of 495 giving that perspective of Western Massachusetts and our outlying regions of our state. I'm the only person that's really centered transportation at the heart of my campaign. We are going to work to implement high-speed west-east rail from Pittsfield through Springfield, through Worcester to Boston. We're going to work on the safety issues at the T. And we're going to expand rail service and invest in our infrastructure across our state. And just to pick up on what Rep. Gouveia said, Rep. Gouveia and I are raising money for our own campaigns. Something that went undiscussed in this debate is a super PAC that the Boston Globe has reported on that is getting potentially millions of dollars in undisclosed donations from a Republican.
Okay, that's all the time we have today. Stay with WBUR, WCVB, and the Boston Globe for coverage of the primary elections on September 6th. I want to thank our guests today, Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll, State Senator Eric Lesser, and House Representative Tami Gouveia. Also, special thanks to WCVB for co-presenting today's debate, and to Sharman, Sacchetti, and Taylor Dolven for co-hosting today. Thanks also to the Radio Boston and engineering teams at WBUR and the CitySpace staff for assisting with today's debate. We also want to thank our other co-presenter, the Boston Globe, and thanks to our audience and on-air WBUR, online and live here at WBUR CitySpace. Don't forget to vote on September 6th. This is 90.9 WBUR Boston, 89.1 WBUH Brewster, and 92.7 WBUA Tisbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.